Hello everyone, Benjamin Yurkovich here with Washington Weather Chasers. Today we're just going to take a look at what is currently happening with the Bear Gulch fire, what temperatures are going to look like today, and we're going to zoom off into the future to see what kind of weather is coming down the pipe. So overnight, the Bear Gulch fire continued to burn pretty dang hot, and we can see that it's sending off a really impressive, nasty plume of smoke way up north. As a matter of fact, if we look at a wider view of the region, we can see that the smoke from the Bear Gulch fire is going well into British Columbia. And as a result of this, the air quality for many is quite diminished. Really close to the Bear Gulch fire, there is hazardous air conditions right there on Lake Cushman. And then as we go up towards Port Angeles, air quality is quite diminished in certain parts of Port Angeles, especially up in the foothills and Sequim. There's also diminished air quality near West Snohomish County, places like Arlington, Marysville, and Monroe. And that's mostly still from the wildfires that are out east. But then the Bear Gulch wildfire is also diminishing air quality up in places like the San Juans and West Whatcom County and well into British Columbia. And there's a chance that this fire could continue to burn hot throughout the day. If we look at the heat signature that this thing has been putting out, it really made an impressive run. And part of the reason why this heat signature could be so far up the hill here is just because the fire was kind of laying over flatter, not so much vertical growth, but it was more of a wind-driven type event. So the heat signature, the column was going up more horizontally, not just vertically. But there is a good chance that the fire did extend quite a bit farther north overnight. And just looking at things on satellite imagery, it seems that it's going to continue doing this throughout the day. If we were to go ahead and look at the 925 millibar winds, we see that the southerly winds at about 2,000 feet are going to slough off a bit as we head into this morning, which that may help the fire calm down in terms of making its run. But it is going to continue to burn pretty hot as we head into the day. Temperatures this morning. Okay, so some of the easterly winds haven't completely stopped. So places like North Bend have only gotten down to about 59 degrees, where the easterly winds have continued. But in the areas that are more wind sheltered, like Lake Stevens and Arlington right now, the winds the temperatures have gotten down to the low 50s. So yeah, pretty mild morning this morning, and same for eastern Washington, with a couple locations getting into the low 40s. Looking at temperatures for today, we can see that by about 2 p.m., many locations inland away from the water are going to get at least into the mid to upper 70s for King County south. And then once we get up into Snohomish County, temperatures are likely going to get into maybe the low to mid 70s, maybe a little bit cooler towards the water. It'll be a cooler day on places like Whidbey Island and out on the coast. The coast definitely got quite a bit hotter than the models were predicting yesterday. And yeah, Whatcom County today will get to the mid to upper 70s. And east of the mountains is going to be a hotter day actually out there, with some locations getting into the upper 80s like Spokane and Wenatchee. Looking at the European model, it kind of reflects the same story, with low 70s in Snohomish County, a little bit warmer in King County south along the I-5 corridor, cooler on the coast, cooler up by places like Port Angeles, and hotter east of the Cascades. Looking at the upper air pattern here, this is the European model, ran through AI actually. It helps us see out a little bit further on the nighttime run. We can see that right now we're in a bit of a transition, got a little bit of ridging that's going to happen over the next couple days, but it's not going to be anything too extreme. It's going to lead to pretty pleasant weather through at least Friday. And Saturday could be a day of transition, as it looks like a jet stream is still pegged to make its way towards the Pacific Northwest by Saturday night into Sunday. And then we're keeping an eye on next week for more activity with potentially a stronger system someplace in the region by next Thursday. Now, that's still quite a ways out, so a lot could change there. But the models have been hinting at a stronger system possibly occurring someplace out in the Gulf of Alaska or closer sometime in the middle or late portions of next week. Looking at the precipitation type and rate on the European model, we can see the next several days are dry for Washington State, but once we head into Saturday night, it brings a decent cold front through and delivers rain to much of the state. And then sometime on Sunday morning, it delivers a convergence zone. So it's starting to look a little bit more certain that we're going to get some sort of system over the weekend. It's not really worth diving into too many details just yet, but I do want to look at what kind of rain we might be able to expect, and it's not looking too bad, actually. It's looking like this model run wants to deliver over an inch of rain to many areas of the coast for the Olympics, maybe anywhere from 1.5 inches to 2 inches of rain. It wants to bring the Bear Gulch fire over an inch of rain, which would be fantastic. In several areas of the I-5 corridor, it gives a decent amount of rain, over a 1/2 inch and over an inch for the Cascades, and lighter amounts east of the Cascades. If we were to click onto the EPS, which is the European model ensemble, which basically takes into account about 50 different individual runs, where there's the main run, which just analyzes the current conditions in the atmosphere and at the surface and plugs it into a model, and they run it and they see what it puts out. Each individual member has a little teeny element of the atmosphere change. Like, what if the temperature out by off the coast of Hawaii is slightly warmer than what we think it is, and sees how it changes. So this is the mean of all those different model runs put together, and it's looking pretty good so far that rain could be expected this weekend. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to the change. I'm looking forward to autumn weather. Looking at the 925 millibar winds, about 2,000 or 2,500 feet off the ground. This is looking at Sunday, and we can see that as this cold front comes through, the wind is going to go around the Olympics after the cold frontal passage, and that could lead to some convergence zone activity sometime on Sunday morning. But again, the details could change. This could be later, it could be earlier. Speaking of which, looking at the GFS model instead of the European, it actually brings the rain in a little bit earlier on Saturday, having it getting here by about 5 p.m. and lighter amounts, it appears. But regardless, both major global models show rain, and then the GFS shows continued bouts of rain throughout next week, with a possible stronger storm looming someplace close to the region by next Thursday. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that. That could be kind of interesting going into next week. Might actually have a bit of a storm to chase. I don't know. I want to see what the European model shows here for that system. If it goes out, probably need to do it on the AI version, I suppose. Go into the upper air with the MSLP. There we go. So, yeah, the European model has a stronger system, being well offshore, not quite as close as the GFS, not nearly as close, but storm train could kick into gear sometime next week. So cautiously optimistic for the transition to real fall, real autumn weather. And as we head through this week, just quickly gonna kind of go through this, look at what our temperatures could be tomorrow. So tomorrow, a little bit cooler for western Washington with temperatures getting up towards 70 for most locations, upper 60s, 70. Pretty nice. East of the Cascades, many locations getting into the low mid 80s. And then heading into Friday morning, it appears that lows will be in the low to mid 50s for many locations. Some spots will probably get down to the upper 40s. A little warmer east of the Cascades. And then heading into Friday afternoon, same story as Thursday with temperatures getting into the low 70s to upper 60s for many locations of western Washington. Warmer as it goes south down the I-5 corridor, possibly getting to the mid 70s to upper 70s, and cooler directly on the Washington coast and up by places like Port Angeles and, of course, Whidbey Island and the San Juan Islands. And hotter east of the Cascades, but again, nothing that you guys aren't used to over there, with temperatures in the mid to upper 80s. And then heading into Saturday morning, similar lows as Thursday morning. And then Saturday, we get possibly one more warmish day. And then once the system comes in on Sunday, things begin to cool off with temperatures possibly not escaping the mid 60s in western Washington, and also wrong day. In eastern Washington, temperatures, instead of getting to the 80s, many areas will only get into the 70s, and areas in the higher terrain will be cooler. Okay, folks, I think that's all I really want to talk about today. One more look at the Bear Gulch fire here, still burning hot. That black spot right there before we head off into the sunrise is the heat detection from the satellite imagery. And then we see, hello there. That's special. And then we see the smoke plume just going off to the north. So I guess one thing I did forget to talk about that I would like to talk about briefly here is where this smoke is expected to go. And I don't think the HRRR is doing a very good job with this because there's deteriorated air conditions there by Port Angeles and up in West Whatcom County. And so we're just going to have to keep an eye on where this smoke goes today. We can take a look at the wind speeds here. Yeah, I think when the onshore wind begins to kick up later, there's a chance that some of this smoke from the Bear Gulch fire could make it into other portions of western Washington along the I-5 corridor. But there's a little bit of uncertainty with that. Okay, folks, thanks for watching today. I will continue to put out these videos. The evening might be a better time frame for me to do these videos sometime. But yeah, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. I will talk to you later.